Good afternoon and welcome to Newsbeat on Metro TV with me, Winston Taki. Coming up in the next hour. Stakeholders in Ghana's electoral process raised red flags over the Electoral Commission's move to use the Ghana card as the only acceptable document for continuous registration. We will hear from some governance experts. LPG marketers push further for tracking devices installed on their vehicles to be addressed as they meet with sector ministry. Residents of Zebula in the Boku West district of the Upper East region embarked on a demonstration to demand the immediate construction of speed ramps along the Bolgatanga-Boku Pulmakom road to reduce overspeeding and road crashes. In news from elsewhere, last week of presidential campaigns heat up in Kenya ahead of August 9th elections as 4 contenders will vote. Stakeholders in Ghana's electoral process have raised red flags over the Electoral Commission move to use the Ghana card as the only acceptable document for continuous registration. According to them, millions of qualified electorates could be disenfranchised in the process.
The Electoral Commission last month placed before Parliament a draft constitutional instrument seeking to make the Ghana card the sole form of identification for eligible voters who want to get onto the electoral roll. The minority were the first to raise concerns on the floor of the House, describing the move as suicidal.
Even the Electoral Commission is preparing to bring us a CR that is to create a new voters register using a Ghana card. But majority of our constituents today, some of them have registered since 2018. The National Identity Authority is unable to provide them their Ghana cards.
And even the contemplation of the Electoral Commission of Ghana to use it as basis for registration or for the conduct of the 2024 elections makes it a democratic imperative that every deserving Ghanaian has the national ID card. Any failure on their part will throw our democracy in jeopardy.
The Electoral Commission, in a quick rebuttal, argued that the use of the Ghana card for a continuous registration process will save the country millions of cedis. The Commission warned prospective voters to obtain a Ghana card since that will be a requirement for voting in the 2024 elections. Here is Deputy Director of the Commission in charge of Electoral Services, Dr. Srebo Kwaku.
In 2020, we compiled a new register, so we have around 70 million voters. Now, Ghanaians have been complaining that we spend a lot to compile registers. So why don't we roll out continuous registration? So that when you turn 18, you just go to our office and get your name registered. So what we are doing now is that we have the 2020 register with us. They don't have any issue. But going forward, when anybody turns 18 or anybody who has not registered wants to register, the person will go to our office and he has to prove that he's a Ghanaian with 18 years or above. So I said, and that is when you are going with the Ghana card as proof of your identity, and you'll be added to the existing register.
But the longest-serving chairperson of the EC in the history of the country is urging the Commission to reconsider its decision, as many prospective voters could be disenfranchised due to difficulties in acquiring the Ghana card. He said, quote, Ghanaian citizens don't lose their citizenship if they are 18 years or older but do not have the Ghana card. So the moot question is, why make the Ghana card the only means of identification for purposes if establishing eligibility to register to vote? Meanwhile, government spokesperson Pagri Boache Dankwa says it has become more necessary than ever to use the Ghana card as a source document for the electoral roll.
I've seen the EC conversation around the Ghana card as it relates to new registrants. You're aware that in every election every year there are the younger people who have either turned 18 years during the period of 4 years, or other persons that have never had an opportunity of registering going to pick up their voters register ID card. There's a CI that has been sent to Parliament for Parliament to look into that. I would state that it's very early days. I do not agree with the minority at all that the EC is wanting to juxtapose a rigging of a 2024 general election, for which reason is asking that if persons do not have the Ghana card, they cannot register. I would state very clearly that the EC has shown extreme confidence and integrity over the years of electioneering from 1992.
Meanwhile, Member of Parliament for the North Tongue constituency, Samuel OKUDZETO Ablakwa, says Ghana card used as a sole source document for voting will be a recipe for disaster. He added that in his constituency, 145 people who registered for the Ghana card are yet to receive them.
Why is the Vice President speaking for the Electoral Commission? Why is any Vice President talking about electoral reforms, talking about what the Electoral Commission is going to do? The Constitution of Ghana is very, very clear. We have an independent body known as the Electoral Commission. It's not subject to the views, the manipulation, to the, the whims. It's not subject to the control of any entity, anybody in this country. It is independent, and the Electoral Commission is the one to put out its program, to put out its arrangements. When you have the Vice President speak for the Electoral Commission and tell us what we should expect, that the Ghana card is going to be the primary and sole eligibility document, that is a recipe for disaster. Is that the Vice President's mandate? Under what authority? Under what authority? And it begins to make sense why he said, he being an interested party and wanting to become flag bearer of the MPP. It now makes sense why he said that if you give him a Ghana card and 1,000 interchanges, he will choose a Ghana card.
Now, on the back of this, we are joined via Zoom by Dr. Ebenezer Ayensu for more on this. He is a political analyst. Good afternoon. Welcome to Newsbeat.
Hello, good afternoon.
Great. What are your initial reactions to the Electoral Commission's move to use the Ghana card as the sole source document for prospective voters ahead of the 2024 elections?
Okay, thank you very much. Well, in the first place, I want those slight correction to be made. I'm not a political analyst. I'm a historian, and we have some interest in our political process.
Thank you for the correction.
Especially
duly noted. You may go ahead, please.
With regards to the elections, yes. Yes, I think as a nation, we need to move forward. I remember in the days of the Progress Party government, an effort was made to get us a process whereby we can go through elections with minimum costs and then with efficiency, how it's handled. We couldn't progress. And this is at a time when we should come out of the second phase of our blame game. We usually blame the colonial authorities for all that has happened and is happening to us. We've also blamed the military for all that has happened. And therefore, the question is, where do we go now? And in answering to your question, I would say that there should be nothing wrong with the issue saying that now we have a card which we all agree to, that this is a national card, and that should be the basis on which registration for election and other exercises could be done. So that's what I want to put across.
All right. So what do you think are the dangers associated with the use of the Ghana card, possibly during elections?
Human beings are going to work with it. And with everything that we have human beings involved, there are possible dangers. But we could also resolve that we need to work beyond that and make sure that we either eliminate the dangers or minimize it. I've listened to some of your people making genuine reference to the delay in the issuing of the national card. We should also put on record that people deliberately misinform people not to go for it. So whilst we are taking the agency which is handling the cards, blaming them, we should also blame ourselves, especially those who have wholeheartedly gone round to misinform people not to register to get a card. If we turn around and encourage everybody to go for the card, one of the dangers will be overcome. So we should think about how best can every Ghanaian get a card. And then we continue from there.
All right, Dr. Ebenezer Yensu, we are grateful for your time. Dr. Ebenezer Yensu is a historian, and he's shared his thoughts on the Ghana card. Now let's look at the details of the C191 as we presented to Parliament in 2024 amendment. So let me take you through that is being shown on your screen as of now. Regulation 1 of the CI91 amended. The public elections, that is the registration of voters regulations 2016, is amended in Regulation 1. That is by the substitution for sub-regulations 3 of the 3. A person who applies for a registration as a voter shall provide as evidence of identification one of the following: A passport, B, a national identification card, or one voter registration identification guarantee form as set out in the Form 1 of the schedule that has been completed and signed by 2 registered voters. And by the substitutions for sub-regulation 4 of 4, that is sub 4, despite paragraph C of the sub-regulation, a registered voter shall not guarantee the identity of more than 10 persons. Now, away from that, the Appointment Committee of Parliament would hold hearings for the 6 nominees of the President to various positions 2 weeks before Parliament resumes from recess. The President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, had nominated 4 justices for elevation onto the Supreme Court bench.
2 members of Parliament have been nominated to take up roles at the Gender, Children and Social Protection Ministry. President Akufo-Addo nominated the Deputy Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection and Member of Parliament for Wali Wali, Laraba Zurera Abudu, as Minister Designate for Gender, Children and Social Protection. The President also nominated Member of Parliament for Kwabre East, Francis Kautin Mensah, as Deputy Minister Designate for Gender, Children and Social Protection. These nominations came after the President revoked the appointment of Sarah Adwo-Asafo, who has been absent from work for an extended period. Also, President Akufo-Addo nominated 4 persons for elevation onto the Supreme Court bench. The nominees included 3 justices of the Court of Appeal and the Justice of the High Court. The nominees from the Court of Appeal are Justice Barbara Frances Akayensu, Justice George Kingsley Kumson, and Justice Samuel Kwame Adibwasiedo.
Now, a group of students at BUBUASHIE have escaped near death as fire swept through their classroom this morning. According to the fire officer from the PR unit of the National Fire Service, Kinate, the cause of the fire is unknown at the moment. Eyewitnesses say the fire started from the residential apartment. A concrete structure, a remedial school and wooden house were also affected by the fire. We have been joined on phone by our reporter Job Laboja to have a conversation on the back of this. Good afternoon and welcome to Newsbeat.
Good afternoon, Winston.
Can you report what's the extent of damage caused by the fire outbreak?
Well, as I speak to you now, the fire service and then the ECG people are still here currently. But then what I've picked so far is that the fire started somewhere around 9 a.m., 9:30 a.m. And the residents here are saying that they could have saved a lot, but with the delay in response of the fire service caused the fire to go to other areas. And as I speak to you now, the fire actually started from a double containment wooden structure, which is a remedial school, and then one residential apartment. But then we are told that the fire started from a kitchen where someone was cooking, and all they could hear was a radimewu, which literally means that I'm dead, God. And the person ran away, and then the fire caught the entire structure. So as I speak to you now, the remedial school is burnt down completely. The books are burnt, their computers and laptops, chairs, everything is gone. There is another house that is close to the wooden structure, and I speak to you now, that place too is also burnt. I saw a woman picking some money on the floor, and according to her, that's her savings. About 4,000 cedis, as she claims. We cannot certify that.
Was there been any reported casualty after this incident?
No casualties recorded yet. No casualties recorded. It's just the wooden structure burnt to ashes, and a nearby house too is burnt. And as I speak to you now, residents are still counting their losses. You can see their television sets, fridges, everything burnt. And their worry is that the remedial school here has been beneficial to them. And they believe it is time that benevolent individuals will come to this community and help them put up the structure again so that the students around here can still benefit, especially in this time where they are going into exam.
Did you get to have interaction with the fire service officials who were at the scene, and what were some of the information that you picked up from that?
Well, you know, I got in touch with them, but then all they could tell us is that they are conducting investigations. They cannot tell us the cause of the fire at a stance now. But they are also debunking the fact that they didn't respond late, and what the residents are saying, that they called them and they delayed and all that, is not true.
Okay. Thank you, Laboja. Job Laboja.
The residents too. All right.
All right. Thank you, Laboja. Laboja is our reporter reporting from the grounds there. Now, away from that, Cabinet at its 35th sitting lifted a ban placed on the construction of new liquefied petroleum gas LPG stations across the country. This comes after LPG Marketers Association of Ghana engaged in a 4-day sit-down strike to compel government to lift the ban.
On 1st August 2022, the Liquefied Petroleum Gas Marketers Association of Ghana, the Ghana LPG Operators Association of Ghana, and the Tanker Drivers Association of Ghana declared an industrial strike action to draw government attention to a number of challenges. Key among the issues was the call on government to reopen some gas stations that were closed after the 2017 atomic gas explosion. In an interview with the PRO of the Energy Ministry, Kwesi Obinfusu, he hinted on a cabinet meeting which will look at settling the issue.
The ministry has already worked on their memo to cabinet with regards to the lifting of the ban already. So it was something the ministry has already worked on before this came. So today, cabinet is meeting, and it is part of the issues on the table for cabinet to deliberate on. So I believe after today's cabinet meeting, tomorrow is a holiday, Friday, whatever cabinet will decide, we will communicate it.
Finally, Cabinet at its 35th sitting has granted a special dispensation to allow the completion of the construction of standard LPG stations across the country. This was revealed in a letter signed by the Chief Executive of the National Petroleum Authority, Dr. Mustafa Abdul Hamid. Meanwhile, all OMCs and LPGMs who were affected have been urged to resubmit their application. On the other hand, the LPG Marketing Companies Association of Ghana has called off its strike following Cabinet's decision to lift the ban.
Currently, my colleague Elvis Andor is at a meeting where the LPG marketers and the ministry are actually deliberating on the way forward. Good afternoon, Elvis. Welcome to Newsbeat. Hello, Elvis. So the LPG marketers have indeed called off the strike, but I want to understand the standard. All right, Elvis, good afternoon. Welcome to Newsbeat. All right, can you unmute so that we could hear you? Hello, Elvis.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Good, I can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Great. What can you report from your assessment of the situation at the meeting currently?
Okay, so just as you've mentioned, the LPG drivers are also supposed to called off their strike as stated by the Vice President of the Drivers Association, LPG Drivers Association, yesterday in a press meeting. Yes, indeed, that discussion is on the table, and definitely my engagement with him have proven that they're off their strike, and so they are going to allow for the services to flow or the operations of the tanker drivers to flow as expected previously. But key among their issues for going on strike is to actually demand for three things. The first one is to look at reopening of the various gas filling centers and also having the opportunity to continue with their construction, the construction of ongoing gas stations and also new ones to be also constructed around the country. That is one of their concerns here. And the other has to do with the tracking device that has been placed in some of the tanker drivers' vehicles to monitor their activities and operations. As it stands now, that's a major concern to them because according to the Vice President yesterday, when I interacted with him, he said some people have lost their lives as a result of the tracking devices that has been placed in their car, and that is what they are calling the government's attention on, to actually look at whether they would stop using the tracking device, or even if they have to use the tracking device, they will look at other alternatives that would help them make their work better. Because sometimes when the tracking devices are being used, it does not give the accurate details of where they are. Sometimes, in the case of an emergency, the tracking device reports that they have stopped along the stretch of their destination. So that is what is being discussed now. Now, whether or not it will be favorable for the parties involved in this deliberation to agree on it will be taken off or will not be taken off.
We apologize. Okay, we apologize for the break in transmission there. We'll bring you more details in our subsequent bulletins on the development between the LPG marketers and the ministry right after this. While we take a break, we'll be back with more news. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Newsbeat live on Metro TV. We are also streaming live on our Facebook page at Metro TV GH and also on Twitter. Now to some more news. Member of Parliament for North Tongue constituency, Samuel OKUDZETO Ablakwa, has called for the total overhaul of the National Ambulance Service. He said instead of its intended purpose, it is used for profiteering. Government spokesperson on governance and security, Palgrave BUBUASHIE says persons who monetize government policies should be cleared from their positions.
What is so complex? You know, what is really so difficult about making sure that fuel coupons are available for the ambulance service across the 275 constituencies to operate? And you see, this is even one matter, Doc, that regardless of even financial delays, we can have a system, because it's government to government. We should have an arrangement where, whether there are delays or artificial bottlenecks, as for carrying out emergency services, it should be executed, because it's about human lives. 1 minute can make a difference, let alone hours and days of delays waiting for poor, patients. And there's so many stories across the length and breadth of this country where we have all been called upon to pay. Meanwhile, the law is very, very clear. Section 33 of the National Ambulance Service Act of 2020 is very, very clear that we are not to make these payments.
The operators would tell you that please make sure that you sort the people out, and they demand for it.
Really?
I have been a victim of it, and so I call on the Director General of the Ghana Ambulance Services in affirming what the auditors have said, that they need to clean up all persons, because it's not part of their training, and gradually you are seeing that they are bringing a lot more disregard to the very good work that government is desirous to do. And in every environment, you are aware that there are a lot of bad nuts, but it is these bad nuts that do not help us in our progress and in our development. So I'm happy to see that the auditors have pulled it up, and I'm sure that in the next few days we'll see some very strong action that would come from the Ghana Ambulance Services.
Now, in other news, the Central Regional Police Command has arrested Paul Kwa, the driver in charge of an articulated truck which was involved in a fatal motor accident on 3rd August 2022 at Eduaje village in the Cape Coast Takoradi Highway. Preliminary investigation revealed that the suspected driver, Paul Kwa, was driving a dart-flat body articulated truck number GM 2670 2012, loaded with 850 bags of cement from Takoradi to Accra. On reaching Eduaje village, he carelessly overtook some vehicles and collided head-on with an upcoming Toyota Hiace mini bus number WR134717. The driver and 11 passengers on board the Toyota Hiace vehicle have all been confirmed dead by a medical officer at the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital. One female passenger who survived the accident is responding to treatment at the same hospital. The police is working with the families of the deceased to assist in identifying the victims of the accident. Now, away from that, the INRELA Plus, a non-governmental body, says inadequate funding and lack of logistics are responsible for the poor care given to mentally challenged patients on street children. Speaking at a program to equip social workers with capacity to handle street children, Executive Director Mercy Aka Hayford said the killing of a young man at Circle in Accra by a mentally challenged patient could have been avoided should the right things be done.
Street children have taken over almost every street in cities in Ghana. Some of these children have little care and society's safety net is unable to reach them. Mentally challenged patients are also left on their own on streets, with some posing danger to many. The recent killing of a young man at Circle in Accra by a mentally challenged person tells the sad state of mental health care in Ghana. Social workers are overwhelmed by the inadequate financing and lack of logistics to care for these vulnerable persons. At the program to build the capacity of social workers to handle street children, the Executive Director of INRELA Plus, a non-governmental body, said the main challenge facing social workers and institutions mandated to care for these persons is funding.
The challenge is that the logistics to work with is nowhere to be found. So like something like shelters. How many shelters do we have? So they bring the cases, and then a social worker can tell the police, madam, this one take to your house to go and sleep, and tomorrow morning you bring it. How can you ask somebody to take a total stranger to her house? And sometimes communication becomes something else. So now they are capacitated to go and do the work, and we hope that effective work will be done.
She noted inadequate shelter is also a challenge for social workers.
Social welfare, they are an integral part of this project. And so if government empowers them through funding and then building of shelters, well, most of the girls on the street could be put in the shelters to find their relatives. But once there are no shelters, there's nothing that could be done. Funding should go into these places because the vulnerables are so many that even hard to reach people there that we need to capture. But because the funding from government is not forthcoming to these institutions, you go to them and they don't know what to do. So if they will get their logistics through government funds, then we know that we are on the right path and there will be harmony, as you say.
She pleaded with government to find institutions in charge of street children and mentally challenged persons so they can take care of them and protect society. Officials from DOFSU, nurses, clinical psychologists, social workers, religious leaders and some street survivors attended the forum to share experiences and find ways of improving work.
Now, some residents of Zebula in the Boko West district of the Upper East region has embarked on a demonstration to demand the immediate construction of speed ramps on the Zebula and Tili stretch of the Boku, Bolukatanga, Boku, Polmako Road.
The peaceful demonstration, which was organized by the Kusao Youth for Development, was to draw the attention of duty bearers on the need to construct speed ramps on the newly constructed road to avert further loss of lives. The demonstrators marched through the principal streets of Zebula amidst drumming and dancing to press home their demand. They later convened at the forecourt of the Boko West District Assembly, where the DC received their petition. Convener of the group, Jonas Azurago, called for stakeholders' invention to save lives.
We are demanding 4 things. First of all, we demand that speed ramps be constructed at vantage points to curb the rampant rate of deaths on our road. Yeah. Secondly, we also demand that the Assembly, through stakeholders, enact bylaws that will be punitive to road users that are reckless.
The DC for the Boko West District Assembly, Alhaji Tahiru Isahaku Ahmed, cautioned the youth against taking the law into their own hands.
Positive way, but we need to curtail the effects of the good road. That is true. I know steps have been taken to ensure that that is done. And all of us should understand that the contract or the construction of the road is not in the hands of the Assembly. It's in the hands of government. And we have talked about it. And the demonstrators here or the leaders of this organization have engaged them before. We've all discussed. And we came out with even other measures that will address this issue.
Official records show that 9 road accidents were recorded in the district capital between January and July this year, with 3 fatalities, while many got injured. The recent one involved a military truck which skidded off the road near the Sebs barrier and ran into a shop by the roadside, killing a motorist instantly.
It's now time to bring you the latest update from the world of business. And now to a first business story. The management of Telecel Group, which is acquiring majority share in Vodafone Ghana, says it is re-engaging the National Communications Authority for the relevant regulatory approval to finalize the deal. There is more in the following report.
The telecom conglomerate indicates that although an initial request for regulatory approval is yet to be granted, it is providing the necessary clarifications as required by the NCA. A statement issued by the company today confirmed that it has signed a sale and purchase agreement with Vodafone to acquire a 70% stake in Vodafone Ghana, adding that the agreement is currently pending regulatory approval. Telecel Group and Vodafone have been in touch with Ghana's Ministry for Communications, Bank of Ghana, and the National Communications Authority to finalize all the regulatory requirements related to this transaction. According to the statement, the potential sale of Vodafone Ghana Towers is not part of the acquisition funding, which is fully financed by Telecel Group and its partners. Telecel hopes to successfully conclude this transaction and looks forward to engaging with staff and customers who are important to the business. Telecel Group intends to invest about $500 million in first 3 years to expand and refinance Vodafone's network across the country. The company statement follows media reports that the Ministry of Communication and Digitalization has blocked the sale of Vodafone to Telecel Group, a claim the NCA has denied. Africa Vodafone has been steadily consolidating interest under its sub-Saharan subsidiary Vodacom Group Limited, of which it owns 60.5%. Telecel Group has already made investments in Ghana as part of the agreement of Africa Startup Initiative Program, and it intends to spend around $500 million in the first 3 years to expand and refinance Vodafone's network across the country.
Now, President Akufo-Addo has expressed confidence that the economy will bounce back on track. The president said measures being put in place by his government will repair the economy, which was crippled by the COVID-19 pandemic and the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
August 4 every year marks Founders' Day, a day set aside to commemorate the contributions of Ghanaian patriots, especially the Big Six, who fought for Ghana's independence. It is also the date for the formation of the Aborigines Rights Protection Society by John Mensah Saba in 1897 and the formation of the UGCC in 1947 by J.B. Dankwa and George Alfred Grant. At a luncheon given in honor of senior citizens, President Akufo-Addo expressed gratitude to the forebears and individuals working to advance the cause of the country. Despite being behind the Asian tigers, the president was certain that through resilience, Ghana will be at par with her contemporaries.
Since the attainment of independence 65 years ago, we have bemoaned the fact that our nation has not lived up to its vast potential. In countries, especially those in Southeast Asia, such as Korea and Malaysia, which gained their independence around the same time as we did, have outstripped us in terms of development. In spite of the many obstacles we've had to surmount, including prolonged periods of instability and military rule, fueled by several coups d'etat, one thing I continue to be proud of is the can-do spirit of the Ghanaian and our determination not to be bogged down by events and allow the circumstances and challenges of today to shape our collective future.
He also assured Ghanaians of economic rebound.
The most recent of these challenges has been the COVID-19 pandemic, which has compromised the economic gains chalked in recent years. As a result of the pandemic and its impact on the economy, things are not what we would like as far as the economy is concerned. They've been worsened even further by the effects of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Government has, however, outlined a series of measures, including seeking the assistance of the International Monetary Fund in the short term to help repair our finances. I am confident that we will revive and revitalize the economy and put our nation back on the path of rapid economic growth, a scenario we had become accustomed to in the last 3 immediate years before the pandemic struck.
Meanwhile, the state has conferred awards on frontline health workers who supported the fight against COVID-19, as well as those who have distinguished themselves in other fields.
Let's take a breather. Sports is next after this break. Keep watching.
It's 46 past midday in the Ghanaian capital of Accra, and it's time for your midday sports. My name is Phil John Quarter. Football rivalry rekindled in the nation's capital between Accra House of Folk and Accra Great Olympics in the 2022 Garmancha Cup. The president of the Football Association, Keto Kweku, welcomes the rivalry between the two teams.
We are here today because His Majesty has found it appropriate to revive a challenge game that brought hope, that brought excitement, that brought joy, not only to girls in the greater Accra region, but to football in general. Ni Oyualadon. Football is the most loved sport in the whole world. And the quality, in show I can make boxing, athletics, basketball, football. Football is more football. Football, in fact, football is the most loved and is the most watched sport in 211 countries. This is the sport we are talking about. And this is a vehicle that can bring hope and aspirations to the youth of our girls too. And I am very, very happy that His Majesty has found reason to bring football to our youth, to bring livelihood to our youth. Because football is not only an entertainment sport.
At exactly 19 hours GMT, here Metro will bring you all the build-up starting at 18 hours GMT on Sports World. Myself and the guys will be ready to stay tuned to Metro TV. Well, that's your sports.
Now, welcome back. My name is Winston Take. Now, some international news. In news from elsewhere, last week of presidential campaigns hit up in Kenya ahead of August 9th elections as 4 contenders woo voters.
Kenyans are heading to the polls on August 9 to pick the country's 5th president in what pundits say will be a hotly contested election. 4 candidates are competing for the country's top position. William Ruto, having served 2 terms as deputy president in the current government, is eager to succeed his current boss, who he is feuding with. Raila Odinga, who has unsuccessfully contested the presidency 4 times before, is his main challenger. South Africa arguably boasts the highest standard of healthcare on the continent, where everyone can access public healthcare. However, access to public facilities comes at a cost of over around $300 for some foreigners. This has caused human rights organizations like Section 27 and lawyers for human rights in the country receiving an influx of complaints from foreign nationals saying they are being denied access to healthcare. 3 more ships carrying Ukrainian grain have left the country's Black Sea ports and are headed to Turkey for inspection, Turkey's defense ministry has said. 2 of the vessels, the Turkish flag Polanet and the Maltese flag Rojan, departed from the Chomonosk port. The other, the Panama flag Navy Star, left from Odysseus port. Combined, the vessels are loaded with more than 58,000 tons of corn and are heading for Turkey, Ireland, and the United Kingdom. Taiwan's defense ministry says Chinese warships and aircraft continue to conduct military drills in waters near the island country as tensions escalated in the region following U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to the island this week.
Okay, now stakeholders in Ghana's Electoral Commission raised red flags over the Electoral Commission's move to use the Ghana card as the only document acceptable for registration. The Ghana card has been accepted as the only document for registration of voters. Red flags are being raised to that effect. Now we touch on the LPG marketers' push further for tracking devices installed on their vehicles to be addressed as they meet with sector minister. Now, residents of Zabila in the Boku West District of the Upper East region embarked on a demonstration to demand immediate construction of speed bumps along the Bolgatanga-Boku Polomakom road to reduce overspeeding and road crashes. In news elsewhere, last week of presidential campaigns heat up in Kenya ahead of August 9 elections as 4 contenders woo voters. That's all for the news here on Newsbeat. My name is Winston Taki. Have a good business day. Bye-bye.